This is the Helson Sharkmaster 300. This guy just landed after its pre-order period and then however long it took them to buy them and assemble them, and so it shipped out pretty quickly. They used FedEx. It came from Asia, and a lot of things are delayed right now coming out of Asia, so given the pandemic, this came pretty quickly. It's not a fancy box, plain brown box, says Helson on it. Pretty simple packaging. It's not a super high price point watch, so not really a big thing to complain about. This is a really nice feeling watch roll. I didn't know that it came with this. There's the embossed Helson logo. Little pull-through stop. And there we go. So it looks like we got 4 watch pockets and a spot for a tool. We got warranty card, serial number, stamp, date. These are kind of useless. I mean, I know they have the purchase on file, and so why do we need warranty cards? I guess if I resell it. A strap, rubber, feels like could be natural rubber. Helson on the buckle there. And there is our Sharkmaster 300. All wrapped up in plastic. That is how she comes. Let's get this plastic off. Alright, all that plastic is off, and now we can get a better look at this little guy. There was a lot of plastic on this, and that's something I noticed when I get a watch out of Asia from a micro brand. It's usually really heavily wrapped in plastic. I'm sure that's so that it doesn't get scratched and they don't have to return them, but you know, they could do without some of the plastic. So here we go, looking at the dial. This is obviously the white model. They come in black and blue, and there is a date variant. The white model does not have a date option, but the white one is just so good looking. So you got a white dial. All the indices are outlined in blue. They are loomed on that dial, and you can see there it says Helson automatic Sharkmaster 300. Well, you can't quite see Sharkmaster 300, but let's get that in view. There we go. Not much else on the dial. That's nice. You know what it is if you bought it. It's got the sword hand for the hour hand, and those are blue. I don't believe they're actually blued hands. I believe they're painted blue to better match the rest of the dial. But you've got your 3, 6, 9, 12 numerals, and then the rest are indices. They're all painted on, not applied. And the dial isn't super reflective. It doesn't seem to be quite matte, but it's not really a reflective dial. The lume on this one is BGW9. On the rest of the range, it's C3, and one of them has an age C3 option. But BGW9 is my preference on all watches. I like the blue glow. I think it glows better for longer. I know sometimes you can get some C3 that's brighter, but I think it's really just about how much they stack on it and not about the actual glow capacity of the material. So I will throw in a Lume shot for you here. So as you can see, BGW9 and the bezel and the hour hand, minute hand, second hand, as well as the hour indices are all loomed. That bezel is clearly the brightest part of all of it, and it is actually one of the first bezels that I've used where you can read what's going on easily on that bezel in the dark. I mean, obviously that's because it's fully loomed, but this is the whole point of having the white model, is that it does come with that fully back loomed bezel in BGW9. You can tell slightly that it's a luminous bezel when you're looking at the watch face, because it's not quite as white as the face of the watch. You can see there it is sitting under a sapphire case cover here, so that bezel insert is a sapphire bezel insert. The glass itself is sapphire with AR coating, although you can see it does plenty of reflecting here. And this bezel, so looking at that coining, I really do like the way they've coined this edge. It does seem easy to grab. It looks good. It's got that bead blasted look on the inside there, and then high polish on the actual pieces of metal that coin that stick out. It's a little difficult to turn. It's not the worst thing because you don't want it accidentally turning, and it's not so hard to turn that you struggle with it. It's nowhere near as difficult as the Orient that I reviewed, but you know, it could be a little smoother. It's also not a bearing system. It doesn't feel like, I could be wrong about that, but it does not feel like a bearing system. It feels like a click spring. You can hear that. It does, thankfully, line up. It is a 120 click unidirectional dive bezel. So it does its job. I won't be diving with it. That's not a thing I do, but this is a great bezel. It's a great bezel action. I mean, it could just be a little looser. It'd be nice if, maybe it'll break in over time and loosen up. So moving on to the case. So because this is obviously a Seamaster 300 homage, I mean, they named it the Sharkmaster 300. They tried to follow the lines of the Omega Seamaster 300, that old mil-spec one from the late 60s, early 70s. And they did give it drilled lugs, and they did give it just a nice brush side. Just like that watch, it is a pretty flat watch. There isn't a lot of curvature to the lugs. They do have these like twisted lugs on here, although they don't quite twist them as much as you would see on the Omega. And honestly, where the lugs meet the Bracelet, they did a really good job with that. A lot of these, there's a Borealis, there's a Mark II, there's I think a couple others that are like these Seamaster 300 homages, and they do a terrible job at meeting the, not a terrible job, they just don't do as good of a job at meeting the case with the Bracelet as they have done here. So good job, Helson, with your Bracelet case design. It's really how they built those end links on this. So drilled lugs, like I said, there's like a recessed crown on this side here. You can see it's recessed into there, so it does essentially have crown guards. This side just flat, polished on the edges there, and then brushed on the sides. Underneath on that case back, so there's that shark logo, and you can see 300 meters ETA Helson Sharkmaster, and then the number of this watch and sapphire. Really flat. I mean, the case back, that screw-on case back could be a little flatter, but I think probably given the movement on the inside, they had to dome it out a little bit. The bezel and the crystal do really add a significant amount of height to this watch, and that's just the design of it. All the other homages like this, all the style, the 300 style watches have the same kind of thing going on. The bezel is really thick And the crystal on this is also thick. I think it's a 4mm thick crystal. It is that domed crystal though. It has like a slight rollover on the top. It seems really nice. Seems like it'll slide smoothly under a cuff. So the case dimensions on this guy, 40.5 across. And that's really right in that Goldilocks zone between 38 and 40. It's actually edging on the outside of that, but I don't think that the 0.5mm is going to make a huge difference. Then our lug to lug length is 47mm, so you know it could be a little shorter and it would probably make it more comfortable, but 47 is not too bad. And then as far as thickness goes, you're looking at 13.5mm thick, which is edging on the thick side. I mean, it's not a chronograph thick, it's not a super deep diver thick, but it's your everyday watch. That's, you know, I'd love to see it somewhere between 11 and 12 and not really extend beyond there. But not so bad. This guy is a 20mm lug width, and that's great because you can swap almost anything onto a 20mm. Most straps come in a 20mm option. I think it's the most widely available strap size out there, or bracelet for that matter. I do need to get this out of the background because it is really screwing with the autofocus on my camera. So inside this watch is an ETA 2824. Now the 2824 has a date complication, which means that this model has a ghost date position, and that doesn't bother me so much because once you've set the watch, you're not really interacting with it throughout the day. But I totally understand, you know, people that it does upset. Why is it there? Just get a model of the movement that doesn't have a date position. There is a model of this Sharkmaster 300 that has a date, and so I think Helson just sourced all of the same movement. I'm sure they use that in other watches that they have. So I think it's not so bad. I also did talk to them about getting a dial with a date spot in it instead of a 3, and they said that they may develop that in the future, and so I could just order the dial from them. They do sell just parts for their watches. I could order that dial and either have it swapped out or swap it out myself. I would need to add the components necessary for a date wheel. So I'd need the date wheel itself, and I'd probably need the gears that move it around. But 2824, that's a pretty reliable movement. Makes sense for this price range. Not much to complain about. Everybody should really know about the 2824. So with that 20mm end link bracelet, you get solid end links there. You can see they do have tabs, so they're not like a perfect fit, but there are solid end links. And they have a female first link, which means that the bracelet does drape down perfectly straight. So female first end link is always nice. It usually makes the watch much more comfortable. You can see this bracelet is fully articulated. That again makes the bracelet more comfortable. Could use a little lubrication maybe, but outside of that, it seems like it'll be a very comfortable bracelet. It is that Omega style 3 link that you see on Speedmasters and Seamasters. It is a fully milled bracelet. There's no safety lock. There's no flip tab. It's just double push button release. You see there it says Helson on the clasp. It does have a dive extension built into it that's adjustable, a ratcheting dive extension. So with these two pieces here, you pull them towards the Helson logo, and that releases this ratchet. And then you can push it back in to accommodate the adjustment. That's great because there's 3 little tiny micro adjusts here, but they're super close together, and it really doesn't leave a lot of room for adjustment. And so having this is essentially the way they make up for the lack of any micro adjustment, or the tiniest amount of micro adjustment. And so throughout the day, you could, without even taking it off, slide this back with one hand and then adjust, slide it out and then push it into what you need. So that's a pretty nice clasp, given the price. They're not screw links. You can see there's no screw end. So that's kind of the only really negative aspect about this bracelet that I've seen so far. And again, it does have drilled lugs, so you have easy removal if you want to switch out your bracelet. And then as far as the crown and setting goes, it is a screw down crown. It's got a pretty good amount of travel. Because it's recessed, it does need to kind of pop out when you finish unscrewing it. That first position, like I said, is a ghost position, so it just kind of freely spins. It doesn't seem like there's even the wheel in there that would push the date wheel to change. And then the second position, hacking date adjust, or just the time adjust. That's it. It is hand winding. That hand winding action is smooth. You can hear it. So the bracelet and the case and the bezel, really the whole watch, is all made out of 316L surgical steel. That's according to them, 316L. I don't know that they need to add surgical onto it, but that's what they're calling it. And the watch without any links removed is weighing in at 178 grams, which is a pretty good amount. I mean, it's a big, chunky steel watch, so you know you would expect around that weight in anything like this. It does taper. This bracelet does taper from 20 down to 18, and then I think it goes back up to. Although they say this is an 18 mil class, it obviously you can see there's an increase here from the bracelet to the clasp itself, so probably goes right back up to 20. You can kind of see that equivalent there. So let's get this thing sized up and on wrist. So here it is on wrist. What I learned while resizing this is that it is not friction pins that hold this bracelet together. It's something much better. Each of these little links is held together by a spring bar. And so that little spring bar slots into this end link here. And it's easier to get out than friction pins. And you don't need any special tools. You just need a little pin to push it in on each side. And it is a much nicer experience. The only thing better obviously would be screw pins, but you know, I cannot complain about spring bars. I don't know what the failure rate is on a bracelet like this. I doubt that I'll experience it. It seems like the spring bars are pretty sturdy. And then here is the adjustment system, which you do not need to take the bracelet off to pop it out. So I could leave it there, make it a little looser. Something I didn't mention before, that clasp is fully brushed on the top, and then beveled edges are polished, brushed on the sides. The rest of the bracelet is fully brushed everywhere. So edges, links, all of it brushed, and the links are brushed as well. So that is our wrist shot. So I'll throw up some stats and you can see all the stuff that I essentially talked about in written format. If you would like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think about this watch. Thanks.